And welcome to Augie's Worldwide. Thank you for joining today. Today is Saturday, and it's the 20th, if I've got this right. Um, and uh, we've got lots of questions to cover this week. We actually got caught up last week, or the week before last, but then last week I was in Utah, in Murray, Utah, celebrating my dad's 94th birthday. My four sisters and me were there for that, and we had a little family reunion and just had a lot of fun. So I'm back today. So let me mention a few things before we really get started with the questions here. First of all, I now have an ICOM IC7300 to test. This is a very, very popular radio right now, and it's setting new standards for cost price performance ratio, and performance ratio. Great little radio, and by little I mean little. It's not very big. I just actually touched it for the first time last night. It belongs to a fellow club member who does not want to be named, and he loaned it to me for a month, so I'm probably going to do a few videos on the thing, and I'll start that this coming week. So ICOM 7300, I have it. Let's see, and I'm going to be using a different microphone for the live streaming now. This is not the microphone that is built into the computer, but rather is the it's pronounced fine. It's spelled fine, but pronounced fine microphone that I just reviewed this past week. And so I'm very interested in your comments on the audio quality. The video that I did with the microphone, and it sounded pretty good. So let me know how that microphone is working. I tried to get the overhead camera working. I just can't get it working with OBS. It's Open Broadcasting Studio, which does the actual live stream dirty work. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And this week it's not. I've tried putting it into all of into different ports, USB 2, USB 3, all that kind of stuff, and it just is not going to work, which is a shame because there were a couple of questions today where I would need the overhead. Okay, so I picked up something very interesting the other week. I may have mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Brand new to me, L.C. Smith, which is one of the predecessors of Smith Corona. L.C. Smith Super Speed typewriter from the year 1940. So that makes this, 60 to get out the rest of the century plus another 19, 79-year-old typewriter. And it still works, as you can see here. It's fun to use a typewriter and try and remember my high school typing lessons to see if I can still get this thing to work. And one other thing, there is new merchandise available from Teespring. If you go on any video, what you'll get is underneath the video there's a merchandise bar there, and it shows things like t-shirts, hoodies, phone cases, there's a coffee cup, and so I think there might be something you might find interesting there. So if you do, go ahead and order that. They're all basically, they've got an OG logo on them, and then some words like I love ham radio or something like that. And if you have any suggestions for merchandise, please let me know, and I'll try and get that added. My assistant, Julian, is the one who came up with all of those items there as things that he thought you might enjoy. Okay, I guess my audio is getting out because it says looking forward to your comparison of the IC7300 and the FTDX 3000, which I do intend to do. Okay, well, let's get to some questions here. That's the point of this. Remember, you can pose questions at www.ke0og/ask-dave, ke0og.net/ask-dave, and be able to see the answer on this show. Another way is to send an email to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. I try to answer every question on this show. I don't really lax bass, several notches, and overall not neutral. Too much sibilance. It's actually sitting right here next to me. So it's not as intimate sounding as the Sennheiser, but the Sennheiser, being an analog device, doesn't want to work with the computer directly very well. So, okay. Inesito Wong from Zamboanga City in the Philippines. It's been a while since I've been there. Best HF receive-only antenna for SDR plays and long wire. If you run the long wire through a tuner, this is my, let me move this down so I can see it. Okay, this is an MFJ tuner. It's a Versa tuner model 901B. It's one of MFJ's very earliest products. I've had this for many, many years. On the back, there is a connection here for a long wire. It says wire down there. And if you connect your long wire to that, okay, you can tune the front for maximum noise. And that will tweak in that long wire antenna. You can use the thing straight or you can use it with the tuner. The tuner will kind of peak it up a little bit. A lot of the older receivers like the 75A4, which is by Collins, that I have down in my basement, it's a huge radio, which I need to get rid of. It's huge. It takes up a lot of room. There is actually a little antenna trimmer capacitor on there, which is a abbreviated version of a tuner, which helps bring it in a little bit better. Yeah, oh boy. Oh, okay. Here's M7TOR. Sounds good to my one good ear. I went scooting to Mindanao, not very safe. Oh, I don't know. I was on Mindanao for several months. Of course, that was in the 1970s. That's a long time ago. Okie dokie. Here, this first question, a query from Ask Dave, from, let's see if there is a name. I don't see a name. FB DeWitt, KI7AYV. When calling another ham, do you use your call sign first, then the person you call, or vice versa? The answer is generally vice versa. You call the station you want, and then you say this is, or in CWDE, which is French for from, and then state your call sign. And that is a long standing convention. I mean, there's nothing illegal about doing it the other way. It's just best practice to say, K7ATX, this is KE0OG. So that's what you would do there. Well, we've got Z matching ATU. Well, antenna units, that's what they do, is they match impedance. or actually they act as a transformer. So it's 50 ohms resistive on one side, and then on the other side it's the complex conjugate of the impedance of the combination of the feed line and the antenna. And by the way, that answers one of the other questions I've got today. If you measure an antenna and it's got non-one-to-one SWR, the impedance that you measure in the shack is going to be different because your transmission line is going to act as an impedance transformer unless it's half wavelength or a multiple of half wavelength long, which is hard to get exactly right and depends on frequency. But we'll get to that one. Okay, this one is from Nolan, N6NTL. I have participated in field day before with the club, but I was wondering if I can solely do it alone, or do I need to be in a club to do it? You can do it alone, absolutely. You would be, if you are in the field, 1 delta would probably be the number of transmitters that you're running. You don't have to have the club. The reason for the club in field day, traditionally, it's been not only a gathering to work on the air, but a social gathering as well, almost a party. Well, sometimes it is just a party, but we, for example, at our club's field day actually shut down the transmitters during dinner, and to get everybody to have the dinner, the club brings in the meat from a local Rib City outlet and all other kinds of things like that. And we have 2 stations transmitting and about 20 people just yakking to each other. So it's more a social event than a contest. But you certainly can, and people do solo events. You know, if you want to go up camping in the woods or something like that and do a field day from there, you can do it. Let's see, what's better for 6 meters in the summer, dipole or vertical? A vertical is usually used for FM work. 6 meters weak signal work is usually horizontally polarized. Of course, once it hits the ionosphere, it doesn't matter, but some of it doesn't go through the ionosphere. Hello from Bountiful, Utah. I think there was someone else from Bountiful earlier. I have a sister in Bountiful, and I was just over in Salt Lake area last week. Okay, this one was sent to my KE0OG at ARRLnet address. Let's see, KW4PW, who is a patron and glad to do it, uses an FT450D, loves it, but wants to pick out weaker signals and have a device to watch the entire band I am on, because I think I'm missing out on a lot. So, waterfall scope is needed. A software-defined radio, so I must buy a 7300 or SDR play. Well, first of all, note that many modern radios, not the 450, have built-in waterfalls. My FTDX 3000 has one. There's a real-time waterfall, I believe, on the FTDX 1200. And some, the FT991A has waterfall built in. That's the A model, note. Dave, how is this going to work? 450D transmitter will overload the SDR receiver. You bet it will, unless there's something in between. So I need the $150 switch. That's the MFJ switch. And if you are going to do that, yes, most decidedly you want the switch. Get the B model of the switch. What am I giving up by not getting the 7300? Well, the 7300 is a better radio. It's got a lot more bells and whistles than the 450. The 450 is an entry-level radio and a fine radio. I've talked to a lot of people who have 450s and they like them. For 600 more, I can buy a 7300. What would you do? Well, I'm about to test the 7300, so stay tuned over the next couple weeks, and I'll have more information. That was from Jim Self, KW4PW in Summerville, South Carolina. So, um, yeah, the 450D has, or I'm sorry, the 7300 has the waterfall on it. It's not going to be as big as a waterfall on your computer. Now, if you get a real high-end radio, you can plug an additional display into your radio and get the waterfall on that. Okay, let's see. My 10-year-old boy asks, "Is that a YouTube award in the back, Dad?" That's awesome. It is. It is a YouTube pillow. You can see it right there. It's a YouTube pillow, and I picked it up at a YouTube event, and it was thrown to me for answering a question correctly. It's not an award per se. When I went to that event, I had 20,000 subscribers. Now I just crossed 51,000 subscribers, give or take a few. So the number of subscribers has gone up quite a bit. But I'm very proud of my little YouTube pillow right there. It's like a pillow for use on a chair or something like that. And it's got the YouTube logo on it. Let's see. Stanley Kane is getting ready to take the tech exam. Good luck to you. And what is the best bet for antenna in a very compact second-story apartment? Well, that depends whether you can open windows or not. MFJ makes an apartment antenna that's basically a whip that attaches to a balcony rail, and it has a long counterpoise that you stretch back into the house, or if you can, outside. If you're looking for just VHF antennas, you can actually make a J-pole out of copper tape right on the window, or make a J-pole and just hang it right by the window. Some people use mag mount antennas right up against the window. Happy birthday to my dad. Thank you. He's 94 and was in good spirits the day that we talked with him. He has serious memory issues now, and he was having a good day. So he enjoyed having all 5 of his children there. Helped me a lot. Okay, great, from Finland. Switch 4 and SDR. It's the MFJ 1708 SDR, and there's like an A or B model. Get that one. It's a little bit newer. Why do I hear a lot improvised phonetic alphabet? Just because. There's no law, no FCC rule that says you have to use the internationally recognized civil aviation alphabet, the Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta Echo Foxtrot Golf Hotel India, so on and so forth. There's no law that says you have to do that. It is recommended as best practice by the league. However, when you're calling DX, I have found that in DX work, some of the things get changed. Like my call is Kilo Echo Zero Ocean, Germany, which doesn't make it over the channel very well. I'm sorry, it's Kilo Echo Zero Oscar Golf. Okay. But if I say Ocean, Germany, a lot more people understand it. So I'll use that. I'll use the correct Oscar Golf and then Ocean, Germany, and people fix it up. In some places, Germany is pronounced Hermany, but they still take it for a G. So go figure. Use N1MM software with my IC7300 that allows my waterfall to appear on a 42-inch big screen. Do you have to use any extra hardware with that, or is there an output on the IC7300 that will let you do that? I'd appreciate it if you'd send me some details on that, and I'll try it out with the 7300. Do you own a CB radio, and what's your take on them? In the past, yes. Got into CB when my uncle died, and we inherited his cabin in the desert. It was very remote, and the local residents used CBs to talk to each other and check on each other. And that's where I first kind of got into it. I'd already been very interested in ham radio. I can't remember if I've ever actually owned a CB radio myself. Maybe, I don't know. I wanted to get into ham radio. There are a lot of people who got into ham radio because of CB. CB right now is sort of the province of truckers and people like that who are on the road a lot. It's not used really for much else. Truckers use it extensively. In other countries, CB is a very respectable way of getting on the air, and a lot of hams are also CBers. And it does not have the negative connotation that it does in the United States. Using the standard phonetic alphabet makes it much easier. Well, yeah, it certainly makes it easier for me if people use standard phonetics, but just a word of philosophy here. The whole point of transmitting is to be received, right? Just being able to get a signal out and show how quickly you can run through the phonetics makes it harder to be received. Rather than Kilo Echo Zero Oscar Golf, Kilo Echo Zero Oscar Golf, something like that, so that somebody can hear. Now, I know when you're running contests, that's almost impossible to do. And you get somebody in a DX contest who's at the other end who is just zipping through the phonetics. My radio, the FTDX 3000, actually has a little recorder in there. It'll record 15 seconds, so you can play it over and over and over again and try and figure out what the phonetics are. And I will admit that I have looked on DX spotting and look for call signs that are similar to the one I'm hearing and see if that'll help me sort out what the person is saying. And then the thing that drives me absolutely nuts are the DX call signs that only identify like every several minutes. They just go, QRZ, and they don't give their own ID, and I'm just sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting for an ID. More than once, and this is not best practice, more than once I have actually started working the person and says, I didn't get your call sign. Could you give me your call sign again? Well, I didn't get it because he didn't transmit it. But sometimes that's the only way to get a call sign. Well, we want to, let's see, who do you recommend for ham radio repair? Usually your manufacturer. It's kind of expensive. And 5.9 passed the extra exam today. This is W9ALK/AE. Congratulations to you. That's wonderful. In the Netherlands, only allowed to use the NATO alphabet, so that's Alpha Bravo. I think that helps, but Americans don't like to be regulated, so they don't do that. I use a small computer connected to the larger screen. Send me more info on the Ask Dave page. Yes, please. Or if you have pictures or diagrams, you can attach them to an email sent to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. Have I used Linux for logging? No. I haven't. I use a Windows PC. All right. Okay. Oh, that's right. We're answering questions, aren't we? This is about audio quality from Terry Dobler. Enjoy videos on YouTube, but lately the audio quality on your live broadcast has been rather poor. Yes, I went back and listened to them. There's a lot of scratchiness in the left channel that I have no idea where it came from. Somewhere in the computer, I guess. I'm hoping that we have no noise of that kind right now. The microphone is like this far away from me, and hopefully that is helping a lot. I would appreciate your feedback on the audio. Okay, it sounds like I'm overdriving an early audio stage and turning down the gain of a later stage. Well, that's entirely possible that it was. It was using the built-in computer mic before. Up until now, that's what I've used. Guessing you're using the mic on the camera. No, actually, I've been using the mic in the computer. There is a mic on the camera that I could use. It's a Logitech HD 1080p little Logitech camera. Can't point the camera at itself, or I'd show you what it is. Is the input set to mic level instead of line level, perhaps? I think I've solved the problem with this microphone. Let me know if you think that's so in the comments here. I'd enjoy. If it's good, that's great. Okay, this is a question, and this is the one I wanted the board for with the overhead. This is a guy who has an Aero J pole for 2 meters, but what he really wants to listen to is the railroad communications. He's a train buff, rail fan. I think they call themselves rail fans. And he's got some questions about how much to trim off to from the. I'm going to draw a picture of a J-pole. Not exactly the way it should be, but okay. This is the, where can I hold this? I can't. Okay, this is the part that holds it up. This part going from right here to right here is a transmission line. That transmission line should be a 1/4 wavelength long. And so this piece right here is usually about 19 inches on 2 meters. Now, if you're going to be on 155, it's going to be very slightly shorter. Okay. Now, here's the funny part. Okay. This spot right here on that part, this is part of the transmission line, and this over here is a half-wave dipole. So once you shorten it, this part for your 155, and you can shorten it, if you want a 1/4 wavelength, take the 1/4 wavelength of 155 megahertz. One easy way is to do 468 over F in megahertz, and that'll give you the number of decimal feet. It'll be like 1.5 or something like that, and make it that length. Now, from this point right here to over here is a half-wave dipole. So after you have trimmed this piece, then figure out this length from here to here. You will have made it longer when you trim this. And so you have to trim that back until you get the right length. Now, you configure it from first principles, taking into account the 0.95 velocity factor in those tubes. The 468 over F incorporates that velocity factor. I would trim a little at a time, and then you'll have an antenna. Now, having said that, if you're doing receive only, SWR is nowhere near as important as it is on transmit. The point of the low SWR in transmit is not to get reflected energy back into the transmitter and the radio where it can burn things out. You can put a little antenna tuner in there, just use a long wire. You can use a whip antenna. The The J-pole's a good antenna for that. Or you can go into the Amateur Radio Handbook and get the formula for constructing a J-pole and just construct it from the formula to get the right length. Okay, so I'm getting ALC, what are you looking for? A good setting. I do not have any ALC in here. The level is manually set. The problem with ALC is if it's overdone, when I don't say anything, it just keeps raising the gain until you hear a lot of background noise. And one of the things I have in the background is this great big clock here. And it ticks, which drives people mad sometimes. So if I turn down the volume, I don't pick up so much ticking. Okay. If you put the page right against your chest, we'll see it great. Right against my beard, I guess. Okay. This one is from Curtis, KI5DKZ. Says, Dave, in your episode 20, you recommended buying the MFJ 993B and the Yaesu FT 991. I believe that the radio is now the FT 991A and has a built-in tuner. My question is whether you still need the MFJ 993B. Thanks in advance, a new technician and soon-to-be general. Okay, I will give you my standard advice to those who are still studying for a test. Pass your test, then get equipment. Okay, I've seen too many people. I really have. In all the years I've been a ham, I've seen too many people who buy equipment, get so enthralled with the equipment, never get their license or never get their upgrade, and then they've got this piece of expensive equipment they can't do anything with. So after you pass your general, I recommended at the time the FT991. It was a very nice radio. That was a long time ago. There is an FT991A out now, which has a much better waterfall and an antenna tuner built in. I think that's what you say. That antenna tuner will only tune up to an SWR of 3:1. Not any higher, except in unusual situations. So you may still need the FT or the MFJ 993B. If you use the external tuner, turn the internal one off. They should not be fighting against each other. Okay, and when I recommended that, the 7300 had not yet come out. So take a look at the ICOM 7300. Now, I say that not having evaluated the radio, which is right over here on the table. Once I do that, I'll be better off. I have been a Yaesu person all my HF career. I did have a 10 Tech for 10 years, which was a fine radio, but as that got older, I replaced it with the FTDX 3000, which I have now. It's a very nice radio. By the way, I will mention something about waterfalls. Waterfalls are addicting. You get used to a waterfall and you see all the lines, and that's how you start to visualize the band, is by the waterfall. And I'm going to see what this guy is, see what this guy is, see what this guy is. Now, mind you, some weak signals do not always show up on the waterfall. So it's not a guarantee. You still need to tune around and listen. But waterfall sure helpful. This is from Dave Green, KC2BLF. Dave would like to know how to use a field strength meter. I'm quite curious about that too. I saw one for sale in, or a kit or something in recent QST, might be this latest one, about building a field strength meter. And I think I'm going to do it. I've got to go find that ad. I'm going to put this out here and go find where that article on the field strength meter is. An amplified field strength meter can be useful for setting up antennas, seeing where the antenna points. One of the problems with the antennas even verticals, is that you get very far away from it and you're already in the skip zone as far as standing up. The radio wave is up above you. But you can use field strength meters to check for RF in the shack, things like that. You lay them next to coax cables, and there should be no field next to a coax cable because it should all be inside. And if there is a field there, then you know that you've got some kind of a problem with the antenna with reflections coming down the outside of the cable. So look it up in the handbook. I'm sure there's articles on the internet what to do with it. Now, one thing to remember about field strength meter is it's measuring the total sum of all RF energy to which it's sensitive around you, which may or may not be yours transmitted. It doesn't have a tuner set into it. If it had a tuner, we'd call it a radio. But I think I'm going to find that field strength meter and build it and do a video on it. When for Yesu. And lower the can just a minute. Let's see. Okay, I'll have to look at that. Win for Jesus Suite works great for the 3000. Passed the general last Wednesday, the Scott Buttrick. Now looking for an HF rig. Well, I'm going to tell you what everybody's looking at these days is the ICOM 7300. It's not a top-end radio, but it's certainly not a low-end radio either. It is not a super heterodyne. It is a purely software-defined radio. It actually converts to digital right at the incoming antenna. I think there's a little amplifier in there, and then it converts to digital. 991A is very menu-driven. Yes. Man to the waterfall hypnotizing. Yes, it is. Is the waterfall the same as a Z-axis display? I don't know. Tell me what a Z-axis display is. I am retired now, do dialysis. Do you know any HF nets on 40 or 20? Well, on 20, there's always the Maritime Mobile Net that you can listen to. There's usually a lot of activity. It's 14.300. Of course, upper sideband. So if that's something you just want to listen to, it's there. There are other nets, but that Maritime Mobile Net's there most of the time. Could be a trucker in the CB channel, could be. Waterfall is not 3D, not generally. IC 7300 is 7000. ICOM's been fiddling with their lineup. Their latest HF radio is the 7300. But they've brought out a real high-end radio that uses the same techniques. It's also completely software-defined. And then they've taken the chassis from the 7300 and fixed it up. It's like the 9100 or something. And it is not an HF radio. It'll do 6.2 and 70 centimeter. And I saw a prototype of it at Quartz Fest. Noontime net on 40 meter west coast. Mark, do you have a frequency for that? Is there any LED light bulbs with no RFI? Yeah, I haven't really found one that puts out much RFI. I go down to Home Depot, and I think EcoSmart is their house brand. And I buy those. And they're not the best. I've actually had some break, but not break physically. I mean, they're made of a very tough plastic. You can practically throw it against the ground. But they work first time, every time, and seem to be pretty good bulbs. They do have a bit of a power factor. They're somewhat inductive loads. Noontime net 40 meters. Okay. This is from Mark Strawcutter, who is a frequent contributor. The open spot is proprietary hardware and software. True. If you're going to check another hotspot with Wi-Fi capability, I'd suggest you get an MMDMV/Pi-Star unit. The easiest one to get is a Zoom spot, ZUM spot, available from HRO, which is Ham Radio Outlet. It's a Zoom MMDVM sitting on a Pi 0W. They also have a cool case, originally from C4 Labs, available. And then he goes on to assert that the Pi-Star hotspots constitute the large majority of hotspots on Brandmeister, which would make it pretty darn popular. There are, by the way, I think last time I checked, more hotspots than there are repeaters. So this is from Mark, KC3MLA. And Mark, I'm going to set that aside so I can look at that. And you might see that on one of the videos. Thank you for the suggestion. This is from Philip Hepner, KD2RPP. And he says, Dave, can you do a video on Echolink? Yes, I can. I'd have to do some research since I've never used it. But there are people locally here who use it, so I can go talk to them. I will set this aside and do that. Okay. This is from James Vickers, KE0RUP. Says, hello again, Dave. Just saw the video on the micro BITX transceiver. And my questions from my previous email were pretty much answered except one. Will it be okay to transmit with this rig as long as I stay on ham frequencies allowed by my license? Yes. I will enjoy very low power levels as I do make contacts on 10 meters with 5 watts or less when the band is open, and many are surprised that I'm using such low power. 10 meters, you can get a long ways on 5 watts. Random wire or dipole to make the contact. If you've got a tuner with that. One thing about the micro BITX does not have a lot of protection on the output. So check your SWR on that and don't transmit to an open load or a shorted load with that. The output transistors can be damaged if you do that. When Ashar Farhan designed that rig, what he had in mind was a 10 watt single sideband and CW rig that would operate on all the ham bands, HF ham bands. And one of the reasons he did that, the 10 watts is magical. You see, in most of the world, the initial license that people get, it's sometimes called the foundation license. These people are allowed only 10 watts. So a micro BITX radio with some sort of a voltage doubler on it so you can get the full 10 watts out of it is a fine radio to use for a foundation license. Now, in the U.S., right now, the FCC is proposing what some people call a vast conspiracy to give away our frequencies, and what other people like me are calling a brilliant idea, is to give a little bit of frequencies in the 80, 40, 20, and 10 meter band to novices, not novices, I keep using the word novices, technicians, so they can have a little bit of stuff on HF. And just like with the old novice band, they're not suggesting any frequencies out of 20 meters, because 20 meters is the DX band, okay? And so it gives incentive for those techs to upgrade to general so that they can get on 20 meters. Now, what they're recommending is that the techs who get on HF will be limited to 200 watts. Okay, now that means a normal HF rig, okay, like my Yaesu or like the 7300, but no amplifiers. Okay, and again, no 20 meters. That's the key. No 20 meters. Some people think this is a giveaway. It's not. If you look at the questions on the tech test, since they already have some HF privileges, there are already some questions on HF on the tech test. Let's see. Okay, 7283.5 is the noontime net. Great. Our flight bowl situation. Real with the side bed lamp on, lots of bacon frying. Turn off the light, clear as a bell. That's too bad. What they have to do with LEDs, LEDs are current driven devices, not voltage driven. And like the classic LED, the little ones that you see on circuit boards, need about a milliamp. And so you put a resistor in series with it, about 1,000 ohms, so that it's called a current limiting resistor. Because as the current goes up, the voltage across the resistor goes up, which means the voltage across the LED goes down. That way you can keep the current limited. So in every commercial LED, there has to be a device. Sometimes it's called a current driver or something like that, that takes the voltage and converts it into a current source. That means that no matter what the voltage across the LED string, you'll only get a certain current going through it. If the voltage fluctuates, the utility voltage fluctuates, you still get the same amount of current that flows through all those LEDs. And that device usually works with some sort of a switching power supply in it. Okay, and that switching power supply, if not done right, can create RF noise. And that's what people are hearing. And unfortunately, it is a problem for some. Grow lights for marijuana are notorious for putting out lots of static. In fact, you can tell which of your neighbors are growing marijuana just by the amount of static coming out of their houses. Here in Colorado, it's legal by state law, not by federal law. Hello from the UK. Tried the Cobra Ultralight Senior 160 to 10 meters, very good antenna. If it works for you, that's great. What's your take on low frequency below the AM band? I've never tried it. It's really good for things like FT8, and there's some other modes that they use on those very low frequencies. One of the problems is you're limited to 1 watt EIRP. That's effective radiated effective isotropic radiated power. So the thing is that trying to put up an antenna on those low frequencies is so incredibly inefficient that you might put 100 watts into it and get 1 watt out. People have done some amazing things with those low frequencies, and now that we're authorized to use them, give it a try. I've never tried it. I've never played with it. I don't have any equipment for it. I don't have the antennas. I don't have the radios. The FTDX 3000 will tune down there, but it doesn't promise any kind of efficiency, and it won't transmit there. Okay, hotspots are good, but many people don't set them up right. Yep. All I hear is syllables and bits and pieces. Repeaters have much better connection quality on DMR. That can be true. When you're using a hotspot, you've got to remember you're using a digital channel. You hold down the push to talk and make sure that you give it a moment. And then after you've stopped talking, give it a moment and then let up to let all those digital handshakes take place. We do have a DMR repeater here on the Western Slope. It's way up in Grand Junction, about 80 miles away. I have a 10-element beam for 70 centimeters. It works great. Is the hotspot built with the Raspberry Pi for cell or radio? It's for radio. It's a hotspot for DMR or D-Star. How do I get started on FT8 from John Ward? Well, John, I've got a video, a couple of them. So go to my playlist and search, or go to my channel and search my channel for FT8. You'll find some videos on there that talk about it. If you are set up for PSK31, you are already set up for FT8. You just need to change the software. Okay. That's one of the nice things about it. You're set up for one, you're set up for all of them. Okay, this one is from James Vickers, KE0RUP. Is that the one? That's the one I just answered. Okay, using low-pass filters with a modern HF radio. This is from Bob Slovic, who is a tremendous supporter of this channel. Bob, hello. Says he's 80HI. Says, Dave, I know the spectral purity of modern HF radios, assuming that they are operated correctly, for example, no overmodulation, etc., are pretty clean, but I'm curious if you recommend a low-pass filter be used anyway. No. What are the advantages, disadvantages of using a low-pass filter on the output of modern HF radios, and should they be placed before or after an external tuner if used? With today's radios, you don't need one. What had happened back before high-definition television was people would get their signals off the air, and amateur radio transmitters would put out too many harmonics, and it'd go all the way up into the TV frequencies and would interfere with the picture quality on the television. Not that the NTSC picture quality was all that good, but it looked pretty good back in those days. So people sold, and I had one that I used for a while, low-pass filters that would kill anything above about 30 megahertz to really reduce the interference to the televisions. In modern radios, you don't need them. The insertion loss, those things are not perfect 50 ohm inserts anyway, and so you'd have to use it after the tuner, but you don't need it, and you're probably just going to complexify your antenna tuning if you use one. Okay, this is from Paul WQ4A. My question is related to your video on the MFJ 1708 SDR-TR switch. I have a Flex 6400N transceiver that I would like to use a receiver pan adapter waterfall. I'm kind of curious about why, since the software for the Flex has a beautiful built-in waterfall. And use one of my other ICOM could you use the Flex for the receiver pan adapter and use my other ICOM transceivers for transmit? Will the 1708 SDR protect your Flex? Yes, it should. You'll see a big signal at that point, but it's tremendously reduced. Get the B model or the second model of the SDR of the 1708 because it's got a little better isolation than the first one did. Secondly, any issues if this works to placing the TR switch before my alpha amplifier so I can use my amp? You would definitely want to do that because your alpha amp is going to add another 12 dB or so of gain to that, which would be 12 dB less isolation between your signal and your SDR. So put that TR switch between the ICOM and the alpha amplifier. Okay, good luck with that. Okay. This is an interesting question from Kent W. Deshane, who is no call sign. He says he has a TYT THUV 8000D. Okay, I reviewed the E model, which has a crossband repeater. And then he puts in his latitude and longitude and says, do I have to put both numbers in? I think what he's referring to is some sort of APRS capability or something where you can put a fixed location in there. and you need to put in both latitude and longitude. Okay, and I do not recall the UV8000E having any provision for that. Maybe it did, I don't remember. But the lat and long are two numbers, okay, and the minus on the 81 means west. A plus would be east of Greenwich. We're west. Okay. This is from Dave Borchard, KY0L, getting back on HF after being inactive for decades. And he wants to get back into Amtor. Amtor was quite common at one time. It was one of the first effective digital modes on HF and was available to those who used the AEA, Amateur Electronics Applications, or something like that. Advanced Electronic Applications was the name of the company. They're gone now. TimeWave has picked up their assets. And they made something called a PK232, and it did Amtor, and that's how I got on Amtor. He wants to get back on Amtor and asks if he can do that. And the answer is yes, absolutely, you can. I don't know who you're going to talk to, but you can. Maybe you can put a group together of retro people who have the PK232s. Amtor is not a digital mode that you would find in something like FLDigi or something like that. It's a mode that was done by the external box. And that's the point. All these early modes, Packet, Pactor, Amtor, and it would do Ready, all of those were done in an external box. You didn't even need a computer as long as you had an ASCII terminal. Things have totally changed now. No, I don't have it installed here. Do FLDigi. I'm just going to bring up FLDigi. I'm going to put it up here and switch this to the top screen. Okay, let's look at op modes. Okay. L. Schreiber, Riddy, Thor, Throb, Wefax, no Amtor. So there are no. Okay, come on. There are no software that does Amtor. You've got to have the box. So if you can get online with somebody who has the box, and by the way, TimeWave still sells that box. It's very expensive, $500-600, more than that, I think. It gives you an idea how long ago it was. I paid about $250 for it. But you just don't hear Amtor on the air. It's a fine mode, and like you say, it is practically error-free. And you either have a link or you don't. Let's see. Worked all neighbors. Yeah. Okay, a lot of good videos in FT8. JS8. I have not tried JS8 yet. It's a more conversational mode. I haven't tried it yet. Remember the word worked all neighbors. Yeah. Great work. Thank you. New to radios. Like some help. Got two handholds to play with. One is a GREPS R282 scanner. Looking for a manual. I haven't heard of that one. Other just a Motorola Radius P210. I don't know. If somebody can help with that out there, please respond directly to Marcelli. Okay. Surprised that SSTV is still active. SSTV is a misnomer. Slow scan television. Well, it's really more like a slow scan fax. you're sending still pictures. There's a frequency on 20 meters that's really often used for that. Um, and sometimes it's active, sometimes it's not. I have never had an SSTV QSO. I have tried, but I've never had one. There's a piece of software by a Japanese guy, MMSSTV or something like that. It's free, and will do a good job on that. Has all the different standards in it. Okay, we have a few left here, but we're out of time. Okay, so again, I've got the ICOM 7300 to test. I've been using a different microphone. Thank you for all the feedback, and thank you for your support. Again, check dcasler.com, dcasler.com/support for different ways that you can support this channel. And check out that merchandise on Teespring. And we will see you next Saturday. The video this coming week should be about the 7300. Unless something comes up, it will be. And we'll see you this coming Saturday at this same time, 1900 UTC, and for another session of our Ask Dave. Okay, so great. Thank you very much. 73 to all.